There's an outpouring of abundance. New doors have been opened. The land, it is green. A new grace has been released. The glory of the latter is greater than the former. The blessing is here. It's all here. Lift up your hands, come on. The glory of the latter is greater than the former. The blessing is here. It's all here. All here. There's an overflow. Abundance of favor.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. You are welcome to today's edition of the Winning in Parenting Conference. Thank you so much for staying with us from the beginning. It has been so insightful. It has been so value-packed, premium value coming from the different speakers we have had, touching on major areas in parenting. And I also want to appreciate you all for taking time out to be with us, because when it comes to parenting, learning is ongoing. I want to appreciate your commitment to learning on this journey with us at this conference. Thank you so much. And before we begin, just a word of prayer. Father, we say thank you for gathering us together again this afternoon. We appreciate you for everything that you have been doing in this conference. Father, we commit today's sessions onto your hands. We ask that you will take control of everything we're going to do here in Jesus' name. We ask, oh God, that everyone that would listen to these sessions, everyone that would participate, will definitely get that word. They will receive that word that will kickstart a transformation in their parenting journey and in their lives in the name of Jesus. Thank you, Father. In Jesus' precious name we have prayed. Amen. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. So today we're going to be talking about optimal mental health, for the 21st century parent. We all know that so much is going on in today's world. All right. The world in which we were raised doesn't really exist anymore because a lot of things have evolved, and it's like we live in a fast-paced world today. And so we find so many people slipping into depression. We find so many people who are not able to create a balance, as regards everything they have to do on a daily basis. We have people who have not been able to unpack the trauma that they have come into parenthood with. And so they keep going on in cycles. And this also translates into how their children, end up becoming as adults. So today we have with us somebody very seasoned in these matters, Dr. Gbonjubola Abiri, and she'll be talking to us about this very important topic. If you know any parent that needs to be here in this session, please go get them, share this video with them, and let's all learn together. So I'm going to go on to play her profile because we're eating deep into her time. I know she came ready. She has a lot she's going to be sharing with us. So while you go get your friends, while you share the video and hit the like button, I'm going to play her profile and bring her in. Thank you so much once again. Gbonjubola Abiri is a consultant psychiatrist, lecturer, managerial psychologist, professional speaker, and the CEO of Ready-Made Consulting Services. She is the co-author of 2 books, Mental Health in the Workplace and the Handbook of Forensic Mental Health in Africa. She recently pioneered Nigeria's first one-of-a-kind mental health advocacy digital network, Mental Health with Dr. G on YouTube. She is a fellow of the West Africa College of Physicians, a member of Nigerian Medical Association, the Employee Assistance Professional Association, and the American Psychiatric Association. She has received trainings from the King's College London, the University of Washington, and the prestigious Harvard University, Boston, USA. She also has trainings in psychological therapy interventions of cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, and acceptance and commitment therapy. Passionate about research in trauma, child and adolescent forensic, women's mental health, and occupational mental health, Gbonjubola is a mental health advocate who is driven by the holistic view to health, and as such is a regular voice on various print and electronic media where she utilizes illustrations and indigenous language to reach her audience with content that drives mental health awareness, education, and empowerment. She currently runs a cartoon column in The Guardian Life Nigeria, On the Couch with Dr. G. She also uses her knowledge in psychiatry and psychology to influence and maximize effectiveness and productivity in the workplace via the Employee Assistance Program. She is the Director, Women's Mental Health at the Asido Foundation and is a faculty member at the Lagos Mind. She works with THR Media as a sexual and gender-based violence advocate. She is a member of the Global Advisory Council of Joy International and volunteered with the Lagos State COVID-19 Psychosocial Response Team, where she was in charge of emotional wellness and development of training materials for the healthcare workers. Gbonjubola Abiri. Hey, welcome, Dr. Gbonju. You are welcome to this session. You are welcome to your session. Good afternoon. I trust you're doing awesome. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this with me. I'm super grateful to have you take time out from your busy schedule, to be with us this afternoon. I know you are going to do some serious table breaking, as regards optimal mental health. Thank you so much. So I'll run off so that you can get enough time to share with us, everything you have prepared for this session. Thank you so much for being here.
You're very welcome. Hi, good afternoon, and thank you very much for having me. I just want to confirm that my slides are up. You can see my slides.
Yes, I can see your slides from here.
All right, then. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I've been very well introduced. My name is Gbonjubola Abiri, and if that seems to be a mouthful, please feel free to call me Dr. G. I'm very delighted this afternoon to be speaking to us about a topic very, apt for our times, something that many people feel like they shouldn't talk about because they have all that they need to make it happen. After all, they birthed these children. However, there's always something new to learn. For instance, as I am teaching, I'm also learning. And so I'm hopeful that whoever listens to this conversation today is willing to unlearn, to learn, and then relearn. Because at the end of the day, what we want to do is be the best, and achieve, the destinies that, God has set out from the beginning of the world for our own children. And of course, at the end of the day, we want to be able to look at our own lives and say that we did succeed. We did the best that we could. And so thank you very much for coming to this session or for listening to it whenever it is that you'd catch it. And so right away, I'll start with, this conversation that says that parenting isn't stressful at all, says Jessica, age 27. I'm sure we can see how parenting in this day and age for Jessica has turned out, because Jessica doesn't seem to be going through any stress. And so she says to us that parenting is not stressful at all. At the end of this session, I'm hopeful that each and every one of us will be able to see mental health issues, especially as regards children, through the eyes of others. Yes.
Hello, Doc. Okay, I can't see your slides anymore.
Wow. Okay.
So, okay, should I let me add to the
Please go ahead and fantastic. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Right. Thank you very much. So, at the end of this session, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to see mental health issues through the eyes of others. We'll be able to look at the new kids on the block, because we have some new kids on the block. We'll be able to understand the challenges of parenting in this day and age. We'll be able to look at some parenting patterns, a little note on helicopter parenting, common stressors and mental health issues in parents, and how it is that we can ensure optimal mental health in parents. And then, of course, finally, we'll conclude. And so, as we speak about the mental health issues through the eyes of others, I would like to give this disclaimer that the next set of case studies that you would hear are case studies. That's what they are. They bear no resemblance to anyone who may be on this call. And they're not supposed to cause any form of stress or distress. If they do, however, either because they remind you of something that you have gone through, it may be an indication that you will need to seek help. And so let's look at case study 1. Mom, my 8-year-old daughter screamed, "How can your kids kill you?" she asked. "Oh, I see that you've seen the book I am currently reading," I responded. "But why would anyone write a book like that, Mom? Do children really kill their parents? How? Why?" "Sit back, daughter. Let me tell you how this may happen and how not to kill your own parents." And so this is a real life story when that happened, when, my daughter saw a book that I bought. The book in question is a book that was written by an American father who had to struggle with 2 children who had substance abuse problems. The book is titled, "Do Not Let Your Kids Kill You." Now let's look at case study 2. "Daddy," Mr. A's 6-year-old son called out to him, "Don't you think you need a grief therapist?" "Grief therapist? My goodness. Why do you say so?" the father responded. "Dad, you lost a dear friend and you need healing. I learned that a therapist can help you." "Where did you get that idea from?" I asked. "In the diary of a wimpy kid, Dad. I read it there." Now let's look at case study 3. "LOS," I said as I welcomed him into the room. "So you say smoking cigarettes landed you in the rehab. It made you unable to complete school and made you start to behave inappropriately. Tell them the truth, son. Let them help you," his father urged him on. "Free me, this guy," S shouted at his dad. "Leave me alone." "You dare speak to us after all we've done for you," his mother replied. "You didn't do it for me, guys." Speaking to his parents, you did it for yourself. Wanting to show off that you were as good as your friends. You did it for yourself. And the last case study that I'll be looking at today is that of a young child who said to his dad, "Dad, you were never there." This was the shocking revelation when an 11-year-old son was caught kissing a girl in his class. There was no one to tell me what to do. I learned it all from the internet. I'd like to play this video because I'm hopeful that it would teach us a little how it is that children are struggling with all sorts of things in this day and age. I don't know if it's possible to play it from your end.
Let me see if I can. I don't think I can play it from here.
Okay.
But do you have the video?
Yes, I do.
Okay, you can send it. You can send it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, sent. Video 2 before video 1, please. Dear parents, how well do you know your children? Recall your own childhood and imagine a world where your parents took time to understand you rather than shove ready-made decisions about your life at you. Parenting in these times goes beyond providing the basic necessities, organizing birthday shoots, taking them on fancy vacations, and posting their gorgeous pictures on social media. While these are great, nothing should take the place of you creating and spending time with your kids to get to know them individually, as every child is different in their own right. Assuming that you know your kids just because you birthed them is a grave error, especially in today's world, where children are being daily influenced on every side, both consciously and unconsciously. When you take time to deliberately know a child, it helps you take decisions tailored towards their needs rather than what you think that they want. Getting to know your kids is a job as a parent. Don't outsource it. Remember that there is no health without mental health. All right, thank you very much. I don't know if we had it, but the conversation goes on how well it is as parents that we know our children. And that question is very pertinent as we are welcoming the new kids on the block. In this day and age, what we hear is the Generation Z, the Generation Y. We hear children who are hooked on K-pop, K-drama. We hear children who are extremely curious about sexual identity issues, who want to talk to parents about LGBTQ issues, who have a lot of questions to ask. And very rightly so, because all of these things are around us. We have children, young children, who are experimenting with drugs, unfortunately. And we have children who, in this day and age, also have no regard for their parents. I mean, a lot of times I hear children say, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care if anything happened to them. These are the new kids on the block. And the reason why I decided to talk about them is because a number of parents may find them as stressors to their own health and well-being, especially if you don't know about this kind of children or you don't know how best it is that you can help to support them.
Okay, doctor, do you want me to play the video again?
All right, please go ahead. Thank you.
All right.
Dear parents, how well do you know your children? Recall your own childhood and imagine a world where your parents took time to understand you rather than shove ready-made decisions about your life at you. Parenting in these times goes beyond providing the basic necessities, organizing birthday shoots, taking them on fancy vacations, and posting their gorgeous pictures on social media. While these are great, nothing should take the place of you creating and spending time with your kids to get to know them individually, as every child is different in their own right. Assuming that you know your kids just because you birthed them is a grave error, especially in today's world, where children are being daily influenced on every side, both consciously and unconsciously. When you take time to deliberately know a child, it helps you take decisions tailored towards their needs rather than what you think that they want. Getting to know your kids is a job as a parent. Don't outsource it. Remember that there is no health without mental health. Dear parents, have you healed from your own trauma? The American Psychological Association describes trauma as an emotional response to a terrible or traumatic event. A person may, however, experience trauma as a response to an event they find physically or emotionally threatening or harmful. As a parent today, you probably experience traumatic events or adverse childhood experiences that you probably don't know how much it has affected you till now. Being traumatized by some life events is not a crime, and sometimes it is unfortunately inevitable. However, it is incumbent on you to address that trauma, else it will influence how you parent your kids. Studies show that severe childhood trauma and stress early in parenting.
Okay, doctor.
Right. Yes,
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The next video will come on slide 21. Thank you so much. And so that video played, bringing to consciousness about how it is that parents may face tough issues and tough decisions if they really don't know their children, especially as we have decided to welcome the ones who I refer to as the new kids on the block. Now, what are some of the challenges of parenting in this day and age? And it's no surprise that I put up here infertility. I mean, you're probably thinking infertility and parenting, where is the mix? The reason why I put this up as number one is that, yes, there are issues with infertility in this day and age, but much more importantly is the fact that quite a number of parents are beginning to adopt. But when they do adopt, they do not want the children to know. And so for so many years, the children keep living with these parents, not knowing that they were adopted. Some people, may actually say, why should they know? They're catered to, they're well taken care of, they're given the best of everything. But more often than not, at the end of the day, it becomes a significant source of stress for parents. Now let's talk about working class parents. The economy is tough. Things are not as easy as they once were. And so we find that as against when we were growing up, both parents are at jobs, sometimes leaving home before the children wake up, and sometimes coming home when the children have gone to bed. It's a significant source of stress for parents because they also push themselves above and beyond to ensure that the children and the family get all it is that they need. The issues of insecurity and financial instability are also significant challenges to parents in this day and age. I mean, even if we didn't want to look at a country like Nigeria, and we should look at a country like Nigeria, where children go to school, but don't come back because something has happened. They've been picked up, they've been kidnapped, the school has been bombed. Or parents themselves are targets of, kidnapping acts to mention but a few. The financial instability is something, of course, a conversation that we continue to have because every day the Naira continues to depreciate in value. A lot of things that we could afford in the past are becoming much more difficult to afford. The issue with migration is also a significant source of stress. A lot of people are jumping on the bandwagon to say that, well, this country is not working anymore. There's a lot of sapa, let us japa, without asking the pertinent question, is it really for me? Migration, of course, comes with its own attendant issues. When you get there, are you able to practice? Are you able to live the life you want? Can you speak to and correct your children in the way that you have always done? There are the issues of domestic violence, where one partner is violent against the other. It's a significant source of stress. And while that violence may be physical violence, it could also be sexual, emotional, financial, social, and even neglect. The issue of gun violence, even though not very common in our own environment, is a challenge to parents in this day and age. Substance abuse, sometimes with parents, either with one partner or both partners who are even raising children, or substance abuse issues in children are also issues of concern. Then, of course, there's child abuse, either by one parent or another, or by both parents, or by people that parents bring into the house to help them cater to their own children. There are issues with cultism. Cultism, of course, can be with adults or even with children. I find that over time, and I assume that a lot of people will agree, that we're losing our core traditional values, the values of family, the values of oneness, and the reasons are many. But in those days, they served quite a number of people to a very large extent. There are issues with bullying, and bullying doesn't happen to only children. Bullying can also happen to adults, either where they work or even in their own homes. The conversation of variations in sexuality is also becoming a challenge to parents because in certain climes, parents are being told, oh, let the children decide what it is that they want to do. Let them, there's no need to tell them, oh, this is the gender you are, or this is what it is. Open up their minds. It definitely is a source of challenge to parenting in this day and age. Now let's look at more challenges as we look at single parenting. The turmoil and the difficulty that comes with raising children by one person can be extremely challenging in the face of course, everything it is that we have discussed. Quite a number of children may not have a father or a mother figure to look up to. The issue of widowhood, when one partner dies, that also is extremely difficult and poses a significant challenge to parenting in this century. There's the issue of absent parenting, where a parent is physically there, but emotionally, financially, and all other methods distant from the family. The children know they have a father or mother. The spouse knows that they have a significant other, but this significant other is not there for them at any point in time. Substance use in parents is also something that we should talk about, and criminal behavior in either a parent, a spouse, or a child. The list is by no means exhaustive. And so these are some of the challenges to parenting in this day and age. Of course, this is definitely coupled with the fact that the environment that we live in is what we often like to describe as it's volatile, it's uncertain, it's complex, it's ambiguous, and it's filled with a lot of risk. It's a difficult terrain to be in, but somehow we still need to make success of parenting in everything it is that we do. It's important that we look at what the parenting patterns are, because even parenting patterns can be a significant source of distress or a source of challenge to parents. The four major types of parenting patterns are the authoritative, the authoritarian, the permissive, and the neglectful. The authoritative parents are both demanding and responsive. They set clear, reasonable rules and directives that are in line with the children's abilities. They are firm, however, they explain their positions to their children and are willing to discuss expectations. They are also very warm, very loving, and very responsive to their children's needs. Authoritarian parents, on the other hand, are demanding but not responsive. They expect obedience to high standards and strict rules without putting into consideration the children's needs. They are rigid and inflexible, and they do not allow any form of interactive dialogue. They have distant, cold relationships with their children. Now let's talk about permissive parenting. Permissive parenting is also known as indulgence parenting. And these parents are responsive, but they're not demanding. They are warm and usually very accepting of all it is that their children do, including when their children are impulsive or when they have a myriad of needs. They make few demands, but they do not give guidance and direction to the children. The last but not the least is the neglectful parents, sometimes referred to as uninvolved parents. And they are neither demanding nor responsive. They are disengaged from their children's lives, have no expectations of their children's behaviors, and offer little supervision, attention, and support. The reason why I decided to talk about this is that while it may not look like it's going to cause a significant problem in the parent's life in future, it sets the foundation. It sets the background upon which the children will build their own lives, their own behavior, and at the end of the day, it would become a source of distress to the parents in future. Now let's look at a little note on helicopter parenting. And helicopter parenting is something that we're beginning to see very much in this day and age. Maybe because, people have said to parents, oh, you're not doing so much, you're not doing so much. And so some parents are becoming overprotective, and they start to overshadow their children to the extent that the children have no space to explore. They are not creative. They don't know how to come up with problems or solve problems. They don't know how to take decisions. They don't know how to experience things in their own way. And at the end of the day, this kind of children become a huge liability to their parents because they don't know how to do anything outside their parents. It's important that we're also spotlighting this because it can become a significant source of stress or distress to parents. It's a major challenge, and it will start to show up when the child wants to play, when the child can't play, the child can't share toys, the child can't express themselves, the child can't, do well in school because all they've ever known is how it is that their parents always show up for them at the end of the day. Now let's talk about common stressors in parents. Apart from the challenges, I want us to look at the stressors to parents in what we know as the 8 pillars of wellness. You see, every time someone shows up at my clinic or wants to talk to me about whatever it is that they're going through, at the end of the day, you would find out that whatever problem it is that they have can be grouped into these 8 pillars. And so some stressors in parents may include physical stressors. Physical has to do with their physical health. Physical health being, is the parent hypertensive? Is the spouse ill? Does the spouse have an illness? Or is the couple taking care of a child that is ill or an elderly parent that is ill? The physical health and well-being. And then, of course, we go to the emotional. Are their minds okay? Are they happy with each other? Or are they almost always sad, at loggerheads, unduly irritable, shouting, aggressive, either at the children, in front of the children, behind the children, not being kind to each other, and not knowing how it is that they can regulate their emotions? Now let's talk about environmental. A number of people may live in places where they don't like. They may live in environments that are overcrowded, overpopulated, in environments or places where it is a risk factor to either one of the spouses, both spouses, or even the children. Then the social pillars. Who are your friends? Who are the people you interact with? Are you even able to interact? Do you have problems with anxiety? Do you have problems with depression? Are you worried about what people will say about you? Not being able to socially interact with other people will affect clearly your network and your network at the end of the day, your network and your net worth at the end of the day. And then let's talk about intellectual. The individual who doesn't develop his mind, who doesn't read, who doesn't attend seminars, webinars. Is it the spouse? Is it the children that are not doing well in school? Again, it is a source of concern and can become a source of distress. Financial, and I'm sure somebody is saying, where did you put that since morning? Financial is a significant source of stress and distress. A few days ago, I read in the news about a man who was allegedly said to have hit his wife with a iron rod to death because they had an argument about the children's school fees. That's a financial issue. It's not out of place that in that home there had been issues with domestic violence, or there had been issues with, physical health or any other problems, or even emotions. But we can see how it played out in financial. Many times, many homes struggle. Many parents have a lot of stress because they can't do the things that they want to do because they don't have enough money. Occupational is closely linked to financial. And we know that with the dwindling economy, post-COVID, and even with the fact that people are leaving the country, we're finding that a lot of people are out of jobs. A lot of men, women, sometimes both parents in the same family. Sometimes we find that families are in debt. They've borrowed so much money and there's no means to pay back. They wake up every morning saying, why am I still here? Maybe I should just end my life. Occupational and financial are closely linked. And again, they can cause distress to individuals. The last but not the least is spiritual. And when we look at spiritual, I'm sure we're thinking is either you go to a church or you go to a mosque or you go to a traditional worshiper. But sometimes the difference in religion is a source of distress in the home. Should the children go with the father? Should the children go with the parent? Does the father believe that, they are being disrespectful to him because he's allowing them to go a certain place or a certain way? Or is one of the partners being overly involved in religious activities, fasting excessively, and believing that perhaps maybe their own children are not on the journey to, a good journey to salvation with them? Whatever the stressors that we are looking at today can come up in what is known as these 8 pillars of wellness. And so with this, I say to us, what then are some of the common mental health issues in parents? And the first one is self-esteem issues. I'm sure that we find it surprising, like parents, how can parents have self-esteem issues? But the truth is, a number of parents don't even feel good about themselves. They do not like themselves. They don't think that they amount to much. And unfortunately, what parents don't know, and I think that I must say it at this point, is that the trauma that any parent has undergone, either when you were growing up or even as an adult, if that trauma is not resolved, you would hand over that trauma to your own children. You would have things that we call trauma responses, which are automatic ways in which you start to respond to or interpret things. And you would start to teach your children to go a certain way because you believe that that's what is right, even when people in the environment are wondering and telling you this is not the best way to do things. And so let us look at anxiety. Anxiety disorders can also happen. Anxiety, of course, is a normal response to a threat. But some people are overly worried about the threat, or even when the threat has been removed, they start to feel anxious. Anxiety is one of the commonest mental health disorders. And more often than not, quite a number of people struggle with anxiety. In fact, anxiety can make people impulsive and has been associated with one of the things that can actually push people to die by suicide. Now let's look at mood disorders. Mood disorders would look at, is this individual excessively happy or are they excessively sad? When excessively sad, feeling hopeless, worthless, helpless, guilt feelings, not having anything to look forward to, thinking of ending your own life. Of course, that's depression. The flip side of that is what is known as mania. In mania, the individual is extremely energetic, they are unduly irritable, they can't do most things, they can't sleep, they can't eat because they are just overwhelmed. They have this feeling of energy. They're overwhelmed and overtaken by a lot of energy. Mood disorders can also happen in parents. I think it's important at this point to highlight that some mental health disorders can start off in a parent, or they may have been passed on from generation to another generation. And while those at risk may not necessarily come down with a mental health condition, if the time and chance is right, the exposure to stressors is there, and the trauma that each individual faced has not been resolved, these individuals are more likely to break down with mental health conditions. Now let's talk about substance use disorders. And substances, unfortunately, are fast becoming the order of the day. If people are not medicating with cigarettes, they're medicating with alcohol. If they're not medicating with alcohol, they're medicating with prescription medication. And so you see people go to the pharmacy, they're buying this medication, this sleep medication, this cough medication, just to cope with the stress that they're going through, either at the home front or even at work. Personality disorders can happen in just about anyone, many times in response to stress or trauma that had gone on early in the individual's life. Relationship issues can also happen. Many people from homes that are not settled, from backgrounds that are difficult to describe, may go on into other relationships, hoping and praying that they will not repeat their parents' errors. But remember what I said. If each individual does not sit back, identify that, wow, this is a traumatic experience that I went through, regardless of how old we are, if we do not deal with our issues, they will keep showing up in ways that we never thought about. Now let's talk about anger issues. And quite a number of people get angry. But imagine getting angry and beating another person up, beating them to a pulp and not even stopping when they continue to bleed. Of course, this can happen in the context of domestic violence, or it may be an impulsive disorder where the individual just gets extremely angry, extremely upset, and they start to beat up spouse. And so the spouse can be a male or a female, because more often than not, the conversation when we look at issues like domestic violence or intimate partner violence are usually about how a man beats a woman. But we know that that narrative is changing, even though we know that quite a number of men still do not come up to say that, I'm being abused physically or in any other form by my partner. Sleep issues, sexual problems, and eating disorders. I group these three together because they are what we refer to as biological functions, or when they're not working out well, disorders of biological function. And what we find is that one will impact on the other. And so if individuals are not sleeping well, it would affect their mood. It would affect their sexual, drive, and it would affect how much they eat or not. In big cities like Lagos, where we often say that, the city does not sleep. We're working hard, we're trying to make this money. People have problems sleeping. Either they're sleeping too little or they're sleeping too much, or they're sleeping off while operating machinery or sleeping off while driving. Sexual problems may result from traumatic experiences that individuals had gone on when they were at a younger phase in their own lives. Eating disorders, either eating too little or eating too much, may also arise. The last one that I want to talk about is suicide. And it's important that we look at suicide because it's not just a word, it's something that is going on in our environment. Unfortunately, we don't have the real figures because people see it as shameful. People see it as a taboo, and people see it as something that must never be said outside, but it's happening. People are taking their own lives. And very often we say that when individuals take their own lives, it's more often than not that there is an unidentified, undiagnosed, and untreated mental health condition. If at any point in time, anyone on this call or anyone that has said to you, I'm tired of living, I don't want to do this anymore, can I just end my life? Please take it seriously because it is a cry for help. This slide is one that I want us to pause on because it's a major source of distress for many parents. And I say here that no parents want to be told that they failed. No parent wants to be told that, you didn't do well enough. You didn't do your best. No parent wants to be told that they failed. And sometimes what we find is that as parents, some parents have been said to do all that they were supposed to do, and the children, quote and unquote, still did not turn out right. But that's what I would say to us today. That's part of why we are on this Winning in Parenting conference. Nobody has the monopoly of knowledge. Nobody knows it all. But I'm hopeful that, by the time you listen to this conversation and the conversation by everyone else, you can guide your children to become the best that they are supposed to be in their own lives. And of course, they will be able to hand that down over to their own children. Being told that you failed as a parent or looking at the reality that perhaps you have failed as a parent is one of the most significant sources of distress to any parent. My prayer and desire and hope today is that by the grace of God, we will not fail as parents. How is it then that we can ensure optimal mental health for 21st century parents? 21st century parenting is tough. It's difficult. You know, these days you have children look at you and say, Dad, you're shouting at me. Mom, you're shouting at me. Those were not things that we were familiar with in those days. But of course, because you are between a divide of raising a child who is assertive, but also trying not to have a child who speaks rudely to you, it can be difficult to delineate. However, with a lot of discretion, with a lot of interest, with a lot of knowledge, we can ensure optimal health for our own selves, even as we start to take care of our children. Of course, our children, or some children, are not the only sources of stress. All other things that I have identified, our jobs, our finances, our occupation, our emotions, our physical health, can be significant sources of stress. How then can we manage to ensure that regardless of what life brings on, we are able to bounce back, pretty much be resilient? And resilience does not say that we will not face difficult times. Resilience says that how well do you bounce back when adversity hits? How well do you bounce back when difficulties, obstacles hit you? It is possible, and it starts with a decision to try. The first thing I said here today is that you must know yourself. Know yourself. One of the greatest philosophers of all time, Socrates, said, "Man, woman, know thyself." It is in the knowing of yourself that the best will emerge. If you don't know yourself, you can't help yourself. You can't regulate yourself. You can't help anyone else. And so the greatest responsibility that you have to anyone is first to yourself. Please know yourself. Know your stressors. Know what your triggers. Know what makes you angry. Know when you are in a foul mood. Know your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, your threats. Know them. But beyond knowing them, look for how it is that you can develop them and become a better individual. The second thing I said here is that you must know your goals. What are your goals? What are your goals as an individual? What are your goals as a couple? What are your goals as a family? If you do not have goals, success is dependent on clear goals and clear expectations. If you do not have goals, you have nothing to measure. You know, one management consultant, Peter Drucker, says that what you can't measure, you can't improve. If you don't have a baseline, even when you fail or you do well, you really don't know what it is that you're doing. So have goals, have them written out, have an idea of where it is that we're headed, and be sure that you're headed in the right direction. As parents, because raising children, and because we're talking about parenting today, is such a Herculean task in this day and age, you must remind yourself that it takes a village to raise a child. Yes, it is you who had the child, but in good faith, you are hopeful that everyone around you has the best interest of yourself and your child at heart. You must realize that parenting is family-centered. It is not only what the father says, it is not only what the mother says. And in fact, I think it's important to highlight that when you have a home where there are discordant views, where the father says this, when the mother says this, and the child is becoming confused, is one of the background foundations for what may cause a mental health challenge in that individual. We must remember that parenting is a two-way street. It's a two-way street from your end to your child and from your child to you. Don't feel that you are giving your children too much room because you're listening to them. Children deserve to be heard. We're trying to raise children who will have voices. We're trying to raise children who will be leaders of tomorrow. We're trying to raise children who can stand anywhere and decree and declare, and people will listen to them. We must listen to our children. As a parent, identify your stressors. What stresses you out? What causes you distress? What puts you in a foul mood? Identify it and avoid it. Take holidays. Go on leave. Sometimes turn off your phone. Those are some of the things that stress us in a city like Lagos. I say to you this afternoon that you must make your mental health a priority. Your mental, physical health, make all of your health a priority. But very importantly, because we always say that there's no health without mental health. If your mind is not right, you can't even know whether or not you want to take care of your body. Make yourself a priority, not an option. Put yourself first. While you push, you work hard, you try to do everything to make the family work. If you are not well, you can drop and life will go on. As a family, you must work as a team. Teamwork makes the dream work. And together, of course, everybody achieves more. You must set realistic goals. A lot of distress that we feel as parents in our own lives and in the lives of family and children is because our expectations are worlds apart from our reality. Things may not always go the way we want, but we must anticipate that if it goes this way, I will do this. If it doesn't go quite well, I will put in the work to see where it will go. But if you set unrealistic goals or you put unrealistic demands on yourself, it may affect your health and your well-being at the end of the day. Please remind yourself that your mistakes do not define you. You are not your mistakes. You are not your errors. You will always try again, more intelligently. Failure is not final. What is final is when you refuse to get up from where it is that you are and you refuse to try. The last thing I said here is that you must educate, empower, and improve yourself. And so in a world that keeps evolving, in a world where there's a lot of agility, where there's a lot of flexibility, things keep changing at every point in time, decide that you need to educate, empower, and improve yourself. Ernest Hemingway says that true nobility does not come from being superior to a fellow man. True nobility comes in being superior to who you were yesterday. Who were you yesterday? Who are you today? How much of a difference have you been able to make in your own life? As little as that may seem, it may be the difference between someone who gets an opportunity and you who may not get an opportunity. The last thing I want to leave with parents today, and it's the last tool I almost always leave with anyone, is that to ensure optimal mental health for 21st century parents, you as an individual must learn how it is that you can be in mental health. Read about mental health. Read about mental health. Read about it. Not because you want it, but because you want to be able to identify it when it shows up. The second thing that you must do is that you must listen to your body and listen to your partner as well. Listen to the signs, the subtle signs. Listen to other people when they speak to you. Listen to your spouse because you're a unit. Listen to them in a kind, compassionate, and non-judgmental manner. Listen to validate them. Listen to hear. Listen because you care. The other thing I would say is that you must look out. Look out for yourself and then look out for others. When things go a little awry, identify it. Pick it up early and don't just pick it up. At the end of the day, ensure that either in yourself or in others, the differences that you have seen, that you think need some form of help and support, please link individuals who need help and support with help. It is not weakness to be vulnerable. Vulnerability takes a lot of courage. It's often said that ships look very beautiful at the dock, but that's not what ships were built for. Ships were built to sail. Difficult times and difficult moments will come, but do not let them define you. Build yourself daily, build your resilience. Even if you feel like you have hit rock bottom, please get up and decide to start again. Tomorrow is another day to try again. We must ensure that at all times there is love at home. Love is one major ingredient that will ensure that you as yourself, you can gift to yourself, but you can also gift to others. The other gift I want you to give to yourself is that of kindness. Kindness is the cornerstone of our collective mental health. Usually when we talk about things like kindness and compassion, we talk about how it is that we are giving them to other people. Please gift yourself love, gift yourself kindness, gift yourself compassion, gift yourself self-care. You know, usually when we're traveling on the plane and the hostesses are talking about how it is that oxygen pressure might drop, and they say, oh, when the oxygen mask falls, whose mask should you put on first? Please put on your mask first. Take care of yourself. You can only give of what is left of you when you interact with people. Your mental health is important as an individual. Your mental health is important as a parent. It is important as a spouse. And you need to be willing to give the best of yourself to everyone. But of course, give your own self your best, first of all. The last thing that I want to talk to us about how it is that we can ensure mental health for 21st century parents is on this next video that would play in a minute. And I've said it here that, dear parents, have you healed from your own trauma?
Dear parents, have you healed from your own trauma? The American Psychological Association describes trauma as an emotional response to a terrible or traumatic event. A person may, however, experience trauma as a response to an event they find physically or emotionally threatening or harmful. As a parent today, You probably experienced traumatic events or adverse childhood experiences that you probably don't know how much it has affected you till now. Being traumatized by some life events is not a crime, and sometimes it is unfortunately inevitable. However, it is incumbent on you to address that trauma, else it will influence how you parent your kids. Studies show that severe childhood trauma and stress early in parents' lives are linked to rates of behavioral health problems in their own children. And so, to avoid a case of handing generational trauma over to your children and they to theirs, be sure to seek help with a therapist with an aim to ensure the cycle ends with you. Remember, there is no health without mental health.
Right. Thank you very much. We've heard it. Parents, heal from your own trauma. Sometimes one of the biggest deterrents to parents remaining in optimal mental health is because they have trauma that has been locked up in boxes, locked up and, taped over and over again and thrown somewhere in the hope that it will never rise again. But what we don't know is that in subtle ways, we are actually handing down trauma to our own children. It can be our own source of distress sometime in the future, and it may come back to haunt us or to harm us at the end of the day. As I close, I'd like to reiterate that we are all in this together. It concerns all of us. No effort is too little, none is too much, as we work together in ensuring that we have optimal mental health for all parents world over. Thank you very much, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, for being an amazing audience and for listening to this conversation on how it is that we can achieve optimal mental health for parents in the 21st century. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Dr. Gbonjubola. Thank you for that awesome session. Wow. Thank you for sharing with us. I mean, so many takeaways. I believe our audience as well, have had lots of moments during this conversation where they were jolted back to reality. I believe there were so many times where, each one of us could relate to something you said. Thank you so much. This is indeed a wake-up call for every parent. I mean, everything that doctor has shared with us are things that are going on today in the society. I mean, if you remember the beginning of her slides, she talked about stressors. I mean, these are the things that parents are dealing with on a daily basis. So many forms of domestic violence going on today as a result of finance. I mean, who is going to look after the child in this capacity and all of that? So many cases of imbalance, but I'm so glad that, she has shared all of this with us. And I'm even happier that, this video is online.
would like to thank everyone who has stayed on. Unfortunately, there was a bit of technical difficulties at the other end. And so Sandra is trying to come back on as well. Would like to thank everyone, of course, who has listened today, who has, been part of this session that talks about how it is that we can ensure optimal mental health for 21st century parents. Of course, the conversations had started since the 11th of October 2022. It's a mental, winning in parenting conference. Today's session, of course, this session is on optimal mental health, but a lot of beautiful sessions have been ongoing. And the good thing, before she went off, she had talked about how it is that these sessions would continually be online for people to use as resource materials. And so it's very imperative that, you take the link and other links that will be shared so that you can use them in the future to be able to watch the videos, learn more, become better, and of course, share with others. There's a quote by Maya Angelou that I often like to share, and it often talks to the fact that until we know better, we can do better. And so when we know better, we can do better. I'd mentioned earlier on when I was speaking about how it is that, no one has the monopoly of knowledge. No one knows it all. If we knew it all, we'd all be so, perfect. Our children will be so perfect. They'll be prim and proper. They'll show up when they're supposed to show up. They'll do the things that they're supposed to do. But we all know that life and the world in general is somewhere where we must continue to learn. And so as much as possible, we should take on any form of learning, wherever it is that we can get it. Of course, learning that is targeted and directed at how it is that we can be better. For parents, I dare say that, parenting is such it's a tough task, but it's a beautifully challenging task. I remember when, some years ago, when I had my daughter and somebody said, "Oh, how's it been?" And I said, "Oh, it's challenging, but it's beautifully challenging." And I mean, those were, in the early years where I didn't even know what life was going to bring. I didn't know what was going to happen as I went on in my own life. But I thank God for my journey. Of course, there have been challenges. There have been, things that I have learned that would make me better. There are things that are still ongoing. But I think that if there's one thing I should leave with you today, as we wait for Sandra to come back on, is that as parents, we need to be clear. So there has to be this clarity of mind that this is what it is that I want, and this is how it is that I hope that I will reach there. Every once in a while, of course, you need to put measures in place to see how it is that, well, this is not working. Should I take it out? This is working. Should I do more of this? The second thing, apart from being clear, is that you must be conscious about what it is that you're doing. And so you are aware of what you're doing. It's not like, oh, somebody said it, somebody suggested it, and that's why I want to try it. No, you are part of the plan. You are part of the journey, and you know where it is that you are headed. The last thing, of course, is that you must be deliberate. That deliberatedness, that intentionality is something that we must always put on. When we look at our children, for those of us who have children, and for those who are still trusting God for children, regardless of how long it is you've been raising children for, you still have a lot to learn. All of us still have a lot to learn. In fact, as an adult, I don't know how many books I have read on how it is, to become a better parent, to do this better, to become a listening parent, to become a firm parent, to become an assertive parent, to learn that, oh, when children do this, this is what they mean, to learn about, types of parenting strategies, parenting styles, to learn, about, the children in this day and age, the funky things that they want to do, what they want to hear. Let me share this story. And this story is about a young teenager who had told her mother that, "Mom, I have a crush on a guy in my school." And when she told the mother's response, it shook me, because I just felt like, yeah, it's probably something you don't expect to hear from a child. And you don't expect it because in this part of the world, what we often always say is, oh, at this age, all they should know is books, 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 books. My dear parents, if all that your children know is books, 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 it may be a problem. That child is developing appropriately at a certain age in our children. And which is why, as much as possible, read, explore, learn. There's so much to learn. If you learn about the developmental stages of children, you would realize that at a certain age, children want to be listened to. In fact, children always want to be listened to. I mean, who doesn't like to be listened to? But at a certain age, they want you to admire the creations that they've had. And so a child can say to you, Mom, look at this Eiffel Tower. And even though it looks nothing like an Eiffel Tower, you're saying, wow, that's so beautiful. I'm so proud of you. I mean, how many children at their ages will know that, there was something called an Eiffel Tower and it's located in somewhere in Paris? So we should celebrate those little wins and not push our children aside, even when they're, sharing their bright ideas with us. At some point, they're developing self-esteem. And so they want you to cheer them on. They want you to encourage them. They want you to say that, oh, you've done this. I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy. Those are the kind of things that, children want to hear. And so unfortunately, when this young girl told her mother that she had a crush, the mother said, no, you cannot have a crush. It is negative. It's going to be detrimental. Yes, but that's one way to look at it. I mean, that's like looking at it through one lens of my glasses. The full picture is that I remember when I also had a crush when I was a child, and my father found out. It wasn't funny. In fact, my dad beat me at that time. He didn't explain to me. But, I took it because, well, it was something wrong and I wasn't supposed to do it at the time. But in this day and age, with the amount of exposure that our children have, the amount of devices that are in their hands, if they don't have devices, they're going to be asking a friend. And if you get to a point where you're pushing your children outside to get comfortable in the arms of another person, it's a difficult place to be, because it will be difficult for you to, get them back. And so this child, I told the mother that, and the mother, went berserk and said, oh, how can you have a crush? It's a bad thing to have a crush. It's not nice to have a crush. The child eventually became depressed, sadly, because this same limited view that the parents was looking through was the same way that the parents were looking through a lot of things in her life. And unfortunately, she started to feel stifled. She started to feel like she wasn't being listened to. She started to feel like her opinions did not matter, and that, well, perhaps maybe she was doing something wrong. And, not only did this child become, unfortunately depressed, the child actually became suicidal and confided in me at the time that she didn't feel like, there was anything to live for. And I'm sure, somebody on this call is probably wondering, from where to where, from crush to. But it's the reality. It's the reality of the world that we currently live in. And the earlier that we realize that there's some conversations that we should start to have, they may be uncomfortable, but we should have them. We should have them because they're very valid. They're very germane for our time and age. And like I said, if we don't have these conversations, it is very likely that the children will go somewhere else to speak to someone else about what it is, that they're going through, or whatever problem it is, that they have going on. I don't know if anyone has any questions. I see, quite a lot of interactions in the chat box, and I don't want to be the only one who is speaking. So if anyone has a question, and tada, at the point where I said I don't want to be the only one who is speaking.
Oh my God. I'm so sorry about that. That was a network glitch from my end. Thank you so much, Dr. G. So do we have questions? The good thing is that the video is online, and for parents who are here at the moment, trust me, their questions are going to be in the comments and I will direct them to you. Thank you so much. If you have a question, if you have a question, please the questions in comments. Thank you so much, Doctor. You've nailed this topic on the head. I mean, you've touched on the major aspects. You talked about us knowing ourselves as parents. I mean, for me, that's the beginning, because if you don't know yourself, if you're not able to identify the things that trigger you, I mean, how are you going to explain that to somebody else? So you are just going to keep going overboard. You're just going to keep overreacting. Nobody can understand you because nobody knows where you're coming from. Nobody knows where you're going to as regards your emotions. And then also talked about the fact that mental health challenge can happen to a child where there's so much confusion on the whole front. Parenting from united front is a big deal. Mommy says this, daddy says another thing, Auntie says there's so much confusion, and the child is trying to get clarity, from the people who are supposed to be a role model to him. And from there, the child can just slip into, what nobody wants their child to slip into. And then you also talked about the fact that it takes a village. Yes, I know times have changed. It's not like before that you see a child on the road and the child doesn't greet. And you're like, I'm going to tell your mother. I'm going to tell your father that you saw me and you didn't greet. And the child is all jittery and feel that, oh, please don't tell my parents. Today, if you even correct some children, it's a big problem because their parents don't want to hear of it. I'm glad you mentioned that it takes a village. It still takes a village. So as parents, we need to work on our, sorry, can you hear me? We need to work on our village. We need to intentionally, set our village. And our village should be made up of people who we can actually trust their integrity, because at the same time, we don't want to get our children exposed to things that are not aligning with our own values as parents or as a family. You talked about a family working as a team, which is very important, parenting from a unified front. They also said, as parents, we must educate, empower, and improve ourselves. So is competing. You should, as parents, we should who are now to understand how much we grow on a daily basis. So I think you did this to so much, and you said something very profound. You said it is not weakness to be vulnerable. It is not weakness to be vulnerable. Also struck was that you should try to provide support, to people. All right. So you should try to link them to the appropriate support they need. So someone said, oh, I've had it, I'm done, I'm just tired, I don't want to go further for one more day, and all of that. We need to take this seriously because we really don't know how much those people are dealing with. Thank you so much, Dr. G. Really, there's no health without mental health. And if we want to raise children, wholesome children in today's world, then we need to make our mental health a priority. We need to make ourselves a priority, because you can't give what you don't have. If you're balanced mentally, if you are not able to put your emotions together, how are you going to help your child whose emotions are all over the place? So thank you so much, Dr. G, for everything you shared with us. We really appreciate you. Okay, I can't see any question here. You can follow Gbonju at Dr. Gbonjubola Abiri on Instagram, and then she has her YouTube channel where you can get a lot of information about mental health. That is Mental Health on the Couch with Dr. G. Mental Health Dr. G. So please go to our Instagram. If you have questions, you can also leave questions there. She would be happy to support you. Thank you, Dr. G. Thank you for holding forth. Thank you. We really appreciate the time you spent with us. Thank you. God bless you. And now, thank you. Thank you so much.
Well done on the amazing work too. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye for now. Thank you.
Right, bye.
Thank you so much for staying with us today. So that was an amazing session. Mental health is something that we cannot downplay. And the funny thing is, when you talk about mental health in this part, people think you are off in the head or something is wrong, somebody is going crazy and all of that. Yes, it may be part of it, but once we are not able to manage our emotions and we keep piling it up, on that sink where it is, you discover that you wake up one day and you don't even recognize yourself anymore. So this is something we need to take seriously. Please, let's go back and watch this video again, I believe there's so much more that we have not even heard. All right. I believe when you listen to this video again, you're going to hear things that you did not hear the first time. And please do well to share the video so that other parents can get in on the conversation as well. Thank you so much for joining us. Our next session is at 6:30 p.m. where we'll be joining Oluwatoyin Onigbanjo. She'll be sharing with us, secrets on how we can create a balance on the home front and as business or career people. She grew her business, August Secrets, from the scratch, right from her kitchen to a multi-millionaire business. So she has seen it all. She's also raising a lovely family, so she has the experience that we're looking for. Please join us again at 6:30 p.m. and at 7:45 p.m. we're going to be having Mr. David Folaromi. He's going to be talking to us about drug prevention. See, let me tell you something. Even if you are raising your children in a Christian home, please do not miss that session for anything. You'll be shocked at the things going on as regards drugs and all the concoctions that are being mixed out there. Please come back at 6:30 p.m. and 7:45 p.m. for the next two sessions. I love and appreciate you. Thank you so much for staying with us. I'll see you again at 6:30. Bye for now.
There's an outpouring of abundance, New doors have been opened. The land, it is green. A new grace has been released. The glory of the latter is greater than the former. The blessing is here. It's already. Lift up your hands, come on. The glory of the latter is greater than the former. The blessing is here. It's all here. All here. There's another flow.